Security Chief Zillax's combat implants screamed alert codes he'd never seen in 40 cycles of service. Unauthorized biological contact. Rage assessment chamber. Immediate containment required. He sprinted through the corridor, his scales bristling with the kind of dread usually reserved for hull breaches or antimatter leaks. The Krylix cubs were in their peak aggression assessment, the most dangerous developmental window in the galaxy. And somehow, a human had gotten inside with them. A human, with predator cubs, during rage cycle testing. The words didn't make sense together. They couldn't make sense together. 3,000 years of protocol existed specifically to prevent this exact scenario. Krylix juveniles during assessment were kept in reinforced isolation chambers because they'd killed trained handlers before. Full-grown warriors. Not. He burst through the security door and froze. Emma Williams sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by 3 of the most dangerous juvenile predators in known space, holding up what appeared to be colored paper squares? Okay, so if we have 12 treats, Emma was saying in that inexplicably cheerful tone humans used, and we split them between 3 cubs, how many does each of you get? Rakil, the largest cub, raised a clawed hand, an actual raised hand, like he was in some kind of... 4, Rakil chirped. Chirped. Krylix cubs didn't chirp during rage assessment. They roared. They attacked. They demonstrated the instinctual aggression that would define their role as apex predators. They did not sit attentively solving math problems. Perfect, Emma beamed, handing the cub a treat. See? Division is just sharing equally. T-Ax, your turn. What is happening here? Zillax's voice came out as barely a whisper, his translator struggling with his tone of existential confusion. Emma looked up and smiled. Oh, hi. These little guys were getting frustrated with the assessment, so I figured we'd take a break and work on some basic math. They're really sharp once you... She paused, noticing his expression. Is something wrong? Is something wrong? Zillax's secondary heart skipped a beat. The cubs should have been in full aggression mode. Their biological markers indicated peak rage cycle. The monitors on the wall confirmed it. But instead of displaying the territorial violence that defined this developmental stage, they were sitting, calmly, doing arithmetic. Miss Williams, he said slowly, trying to keep his voice steady, those cubs are in the middle of rage assessment. They are biologically programmed to attack anything that enters their space. You shouldn't be... They should have already. He couldn't finish the sentence. Oh, they were a little grumpy when I came in, Emma said cheerfully, completely missing the magnitude of what she was describing. But I had some of those dried meat snacks in my bag, and once they realized I wasn't there to test them on anything stressful, they settled right down. She turned back to Gunnar, the smallest cub. Okay, sweetie, if 4 is the answer, what's the question we're trying to solve? Gunnar's tail wagged, as he thought. 12 divided by 3? Excellent, you're getting it. Zillax felt his world tilting. The biological monitors were clear. These cubs were in peak aggression phase. Their hormones, their neural patterns, everything screamed dangerous predator assessment in progress. But they were responding to positive reinforcement. They were learning, voluntarily, with obvious enjoyment. This violated everything they knew about Krylix development. I need to contact Director Kael'thas, Zillax said, his hand already reaching for his communicator. This is beyond protocol violation. This shouldn't be possible. Do you guys have any extra pencils? Emma asked, still completely oblivious to the cosmic impossibility she was orchestrating. I want to show them how to write out the equations. But I only brought 2 and, oh, and maybe some paper? They're doing so well, I think we can move to multiplication next. Multiplication? Next. Zillax activated emergency protocols as he backed out of the chamber, unable to look away from the scene. A human elementary school teacher, sitting on the floor of a rage assessment chamber, teaching fractions to 3 of the deadliest juvenile predators in the galaxy, who were competing for her approval like domesticated pets. Director Kyle Thas was going to need sedation. They all were. Director Kyle Thas arrived with 3 containment specialists and enough sedation equipment to drop an adult Krylix warrior. What he found instead was Emma Williams arranging small piles of treats while 3 predator cubs watched with rapt attention. Now, we use base 10 because humans have 10 fingers, Emma was explaining, wiggling her hands. But you guys have 8 claws, right? So technically, base 8 might make more sense for you. Want to try both and see which feels easier? TX's head tilted, processing. What's base 8? It's just counting differently. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10, you'd... Director. Zillax intercepted Kale Thas before he could enter the chamber. Before you proceed with containment, you need to see this. See what exactly? Kale Thas demanded, his crest flaring with agitation. We have a human in an active rage assessment chamber. The cubs should have... That's the problem, sir. They should have. But look at the biological monitors. Kyle Thas turned to the display panels. His eyes widened. These readings can't be correct. Cortisol levels are... They're dropping. During peak aggression phase. That's medically impossible. Yes, sir. In the chamber, Rakil raised his hand again. Miss Emma, if we're hunting in groups of 3 and we need to split 8 prey animals, how does that work? Oh, great question. That's where remainders come in. Let's work through it. How? Is he formulating complex, hypothetical questions? Kyle Thas breathed. Cognitive function during rage cycle is supposed to be limited to base instincts. They shouldn't be capable of abstract reasoning. I know, sir. They shouldn't be capable of sitting still. I know. Emma handed out treats as the cubs solved the problem, debating among themselves about how to divide the remainder. Gunnar suggested giving the extra to the smallest hunter. TX argued for merit-based distribution. Rakil proposed rotation to maintain group harmony. They were engaging in ethical reasoning. Attempt contact, Kyle Thas ordered. Standard separation protocols. A containment specialist activated the interchamber comm. Cubs, exit the chamber for standard rotation. Proceed to individual holding areas. All 3 cubs ignored him completely, focused on Emma's next question. Cubs, compliance is mandatory. Rakil's ear twitched in mild annoyance at the interruption, but none of them moved. Try using dominance tone? Kale Thas suggested. Cubs, immediate compliance required. Gunnar actually shushed the speaker. We're learning. Emma glanced at the comm panel. Oh, are we supposed to be somewhere? Sorry, I didn't realize there was a schedule. We can wrap up if... No! All 3 cubs spoke in unison, then looked embarrassed. We want to finish the lesson, TX said, his voice taking on a tone Kale Thas had never heard from a cub in rage assessment, pleading. Emma laughed. Okay. Let me just check that we're not holding anyone up. She looked toward the observation window. Is it all right if we do a few more problems? They're doing so well, and I'd hate to stop right when it's clicking. Kyle Thas realized she was asking permission from him to continue the biologically impossible scenario she'd somehow created. Miss Williams, he said carefully through the comm, Those cubs are supposed to be in isolation. They're displaying attachment behaviors that shouldn't manifest during this developmental phase. Their stress hormones should be elevated. They should be aggressive. Instead, they're learning division, Emma finished. Yeah, I noticed they seemed pretty stressed when I first came in. But honestly, they just seemed overwhelmed. You know, like when kids get overstimulated and act out. She shrugged. I figured they needed a snack and a calm activity. Works every time with my third graders. Your third graders, Kael'thas repeated slowly. You teach human children this age? Yep, 8 and 9-year-olds. Right around their developmental stage, I think. She smiled at the cubs. They're not so different, really. Smart, curious, just need the right approach. Zilax pulled up Emma's file on his datapad. Director, her credentials list her as a special education specialist on Earth. She works with challenging behavioral cases in young humans. She's treating Krylik's rage assessment like a classroom management issue. Kael'thas said faintly. And it's working, sir. On the monitors, the cub's cortisol levels dropped another 10%. Gunnar leaned against Emma's side while solving a problem. She absently scratched behind his ear crest, an area so sensitive that touching it usually triggered violent defense responses. Gunnar purred. Kael'thas reached for his communicator with a shaking hand. Get me the Council of Predator Studies. Emergency consultation, priority alpha. What should I tell them, sir? Tell them. Kael'thas watched Emma high-five Rakil for getting a difficult problem correct. Watched the deadly predator cub's face split into an expression of pure joy. Tell them everything we know about Krylik's development might be wrong, and that a human elementary school teacher just proved it using snack-based mathematics. Emma pulled out a datapad. Okay, guys, ready for word problems? I'll make them about hunting since that's what you're interested in. Dr. Vex Thule, Chief of Predator Behavioral Sciences, arrived within the hour carrying 3 decades of research and an expression of absolute certainty. That expression lasted approximately 15 seconds. If a hunting pack of 5 catches 23 prey animals and they need to save 3 for the journey home, how many can they eat now? Emma asked. 3 clawed hands shot up instantly. Tiax, you went last time. Gunnar, what do you think? 20 minus 3 is 17. No, wait. 23 minus 3 is 20. So 20 divided by 5 is... Gunnar's face scrunched in concentration. 4 each. Perfect. And what's left over? 0, Rakil blurted out, unable to contain himself. Because 5 times 4 is 20. Sorry, Rakil added quickly. I should have waited my turn. Vex Thule's datapad slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. That's okay, buddy, Emma said warmly. You were excited. But yes, good job remembering about taking turns. That's really mature of you. Rakil practically glowed, his scales rippling with pleasure. Director? Vex Thule said, her voice hollow. How long has this been occurring? Approximately 2 hours. 2 hours? She stared at the monitors. They've progressed from basic division to multi-step word problems in 2 hours, while displaying cooperative behavior, emotional regulation, and voluntary turn-taking, Kael'thas added. Yes. That's... Vex Thule's crest flattened completely against her skull, a sign of profound cognitive distress. My entire career has been built on the principle that predator species learn exclusively through dominance hierarchies, fear response, aggressive competition. The rage cycle is when we establish... She stopped. This shouldn't be possible. Emma was showing the cubs how to check their work. See? If you're not sure about your answer, just work backwards. 5 groups of 4 is 20, plus the 3 we saved. Miss Williams. Vexthul activated the comm with trembling hands. I need to understand your methodology. What dominance techniques are you employing? Emma looked confused. Dominance? I'm not. These are kids. You don't dominate kids. You teach them. But the rage cycle requires... What rage cycle? Emma gestured at the cubs, who were now collaborating on a harder problem, sharing treats as they worked. They're calm. They're focused. They're learning. They're in biological peak aggression phase. They're stressed, Emma corrected gently. Look, I work with kids who have behavioral challenges. The ones who act out the most. Usually they're overstimulated, hungry, or scared. These guys. She scratched Gunar's head again. They were all 3 when I got here. No wonder they were having trouble. You're suggesting, Vexthul said slowly, that the most critical assessment phase in Krylek's development is bad timing. I'm suggesting maybe testing kids when they're at their most stressed isn't a great way to see what they can actually do. Emma shrugged. When my students are hungry and overwhelmed, they can barely write their names. But after snack time, in a calm environment, they're amazing. Kailthas pulled up the historical data on Krylek's education. 3,000 years of rage cycle assessments. 3,000 years of evaluating cubs at their biological worst, then building an entire educational philosophy around those results. We've been doing this backwards, he said quietly. Director, Vexthul started. Look at the cognitive performance data. He highlighted the monitors. They're not just calm. Their learning capacity is exponentially higher than any recorded rage cycle assessment. Because they're not in survival mode. They're in learning mode. On screen, Emma was praising Tiax for helping Gunnar with a difficult problem. Both cubs displayed what the monitors classified as parental bond pleasure response. Something that shouldn't activate except with biological parents. She's using positive reinforcement. Vexthul whispered. Reward-based learning. We abandoned that approach 800 years ago because the research showed. Research conducted during rage cycle assessments, Kailthas interrupted. When cubs are biologically incapable of responding to positive stimuli. The implications crashed through the observation room like a shockwave. Every educational protocol we have, Vexthul began. Based on flawed developmental windows, Kailthas finished. The aggression training, the dominance hierarchies, the isolation protocols, potentially inducing the very stress responses we thought were biological imperatives. Emma's voice cut through their existential crisis, cheerful and oblivious. Okay, guys, ready for multiplication tables? I brought stickers for everyone who participates. What are stickers? Rakil asked. Little decorative rewards. Here, you've already earned 3, see? This one's a star because you did great on division. This one's a lightning bolt for speed. Rakil examined the tiny, adhesive images on his scales with reverence, like they were battle honors. Director, Zilak said quietly. She's training apex predators with sparkly paper and baby talk. I know. And it's more effective than 3 millennia of aggressive conditioning protocols. I know. Vexthul's legs gave out. She sat heavily on the floor, watching her life's work dissolve in real time. They're just kids, Emma was saying, giving each cub an encouraging pat. You treat them like monsters, they'll act like monsters. Treat them like the smart, capable little people they are. She smiled at their eager faces. They'll surprise you every time. Gunnar raised his hand politely. Miss Emma, can we learn subtraction next? You know what this reminds me of, Emma said, helping T-Ax work through a multiplication problem. I had a student last year, Marcus, who everyone said was unteachable. Aggressive, couldn't focus, disrupted the whole class. She smiled. Turned out he had sensory processing issues and was hungry half the time. Once we addressed those basics, honors student. Kyle Thas felt something shift in his understanding. Miss Williams, what exactly do you teach on Earth? Special education. Kids with behavioral challenges, learning disabilities, developmental differences. She said it so casually, like it wasn't the answer to everything. A lot of what people call bad behavior is just unmet needs or poor environmental fit. You figure out what they actually need, provide it consistently, and suddenly the problem child isn't a problem anymore. And these techniques, Vexthul's voice cracked. They work across species? I mean, apparently? Emma laughed. Turns out the basics are pretty universal. Safe environment, basic needs met, clear expectations, positive reinforcement, respect. She gestured at the cubs. These guys aren't special. They're just being treated like learners instead of threats. Rakil was now teaching Gunnar how to carry numbers in addition. Patiently, encouraging him when he struggled. The monitors showed synchronized neural patterns consistent with collaborative learning. Something Krylik's solitary predator theory said was neurologically impossible. Director, Zelax interrupted. The Council of Predator Studies is demanding a full report. They want to know if we need to terminate the cubs. What? Emma's head snapped up, her tone sharp for the first time. Why would you? These cubs are brilliant. They're thriving. Standard protocol when assessment anomalies indicate developmental defects. Kael'thas explained, then heard his own words. Developmental defects. They'd been calling successful learning a defect. Cancel that order, immediately. These cubs are to be classified as high-value research subjects. Full protection status. Sir, the protocols? The protocols are wrong. Kael'thas straightened. 3,000 years wrong. Miss Williams has demonstrated that in 4 hours, what we couldn't achieve in millennia of conditioning. Emma pulled out a small notebook. Okay, if we're doing this properly, they need consistent schedules. Regular meal times and actual nutritious meals, not whatever stress hormone-inducing thing you've been feeding them. Plenty of sleep, enrichment activities, social interaction time. She looked up. Basically, stop treating them like experimental subjects and start treating them like children. The aggression training, Vexthul started, is probably causing the aggression, Emma finished. If you raise anyone in constant stress and fear, expecting violence, guess what? They'll give you violence. But these three? She beamed at the cubs, who were now attempting basic algebra with enthusiasm. They want to learn. They want approval. They want to cooperate. You've just been suppressing it. Gunnar raised his hand. Miss Emma, can we have homework? I want to practice. A Krylik's cub asking for homework. Vexthul said faintly. I'm hallucinating. This is a stress-induced hallucination. I can make you practice sheets. Emma was already sketching out problems. We'll start simple and work up. Practice a little each day, and next time I visit, we can go over them together. Next time? All three cubs perked up. Well, sure, you guys are doing great. I'd love to keep working with you. She glanced at Kael'thas. If that's okay? Kael'thas thought about the implications. The entire Krylik's education system, the council, the generations of warriors trained through aggression and fear. All of it. Potentially obsolete because one human with treats and stickers had proven there was a better way. "Miss Williams," he said carefully, "how would you feel about conducting a demonstration for our education committee? With proper compensation, of course." "Oh, sure. I'm on winter break anyway." She started packing up her supplies. "Just let me know when." The cubs clustered around her, reluctant to see her leave. "You'll come back?" Rakil asked, his voice small. "I promise. And you three practice those problems, okay? I'm expecting great things." 3 apex predator cubs nodded eagerly, clutching their homework sheets and sticker rewards like treasures. Vexthul watched them go, her entire worldview in shambles. "I need to resign. My research, my publications, my reputation, it's all based on fundamental errors." "Then help me fix it," Kael'thas said. "We have a chance to revolutionize Krylix education, to give our children what they actually need." He pulled up a blank document. "Complete system overhaul. Every protocol, every assumption, everything." Emma waved goodbye at the door, already thinking about dinner plans, completely unaware she'd just dismantled 3 millennia of tradition with elementary school teaching methods. 1 week later, Emma stood before the Galactic Council's Emergency Education Committee, flanked by 3 Krylix cubs who were calmly demonstrating pre-algebra concepts to a room full of stunned officials. "And that's why positive reinforcement works better than fear-based learning," Emma concluded, as Rakil finished explaining his solution process to a visiting Vraxian predator education specialist. "Any questions?" The committee sat in shell-shocked silence. Representatives from 6 predator species were frantically taking notes. The Krylix delegation looked like they were attending their own funeral. "The cubs have advanced 3 grade levels in 7 days," Director Kael'thas reported. "They're now tutoring younger students, voluntarily. We've had to completely restructure our assessment metrics because they've exceeded every benchmark we have. Human child development theory is apparently universal." Vexthul added, sounding like she was still processing her existential crisis. "We've begun translating Earth educational psychology texts, all of them." A Vraxian official raised a tentacle. "Miss Williams, would you be willing to consult on our education system? We're experiencing similar revelations." "Oh, I'd love to help, but I need to head back to Earth pretty soon." Emma checked her datapad. "Parent-teacher conferences next week, and I've got 23 students who need report cards." "You're leaving?" Gunnar looked up from his worksheet distressed. "Just for a bit, sweetie. But look." Emma handed Kael'thas a thick folder. "I made complete lesson plans for the next month. Lots of activities, teaching strategies, even some songs for memorizing multiplication tables. Oh, and try circle time. It's great for building community and communication skills." "Circle time," Kael'thas repeated, adding it to the mountain of human educational concepts he was now implementing. Tiax approached Emma shyly. "We got you something." He held out a datapad with a carefully written thank you note, decorated with drawings of the cubs learning math. Emma's eyes got a little misty. "Oh, you guys. This is so sweet." She knelt down, and all 3 cubs rushed in for a hug, their arms wrapping around her in a display of affection that every Krylix biologist had sworn was neurologically impossible outside of parent-child bonds. "You changed everything," Rakil mumbled into her shoulder. "You did that yourselves," Emma said, squeezing them back. "I just gave you the chance. Turns out kids are kids, even in space." She stood, wiping her eyes. "Okay, Now I'm really going to cry. Keep practicing. Be good. And remember, mistakes are just learning opportunities. Yes, Miss Emma. 3 voices chorused. Zilax watched from the observation deck as Emma gathered her things, chatting with Kael'thas about recommended reading lists and classroom management techniques. Below, the 3 cubs returned to their homework. Peacefully, cooperatively, eagerly. 1 human, 1 bag of treats, 4 hours, 3,000 years of tradition, dissolved like sugar in water. Director, Zilax called out. The Galactic Council wants to establish human education, methodology as the new universal standard. They're requesting Miss Williams develop a training program for all predator species educators. Kael'thas nodded absently, staring at the complete system redesign on his screen. Every protocol rewritten, every assumption challenged. The entire Krylix approach to child development, reconstructed from the ground up using human elementary school principles. Emma paused at the exit. Oh, one more thing. Do any of you know good recipes for Earth snacks that work with Krylix biology? The cubs really liked those protein treats, but I'm thinking I could bring some variety next time. Maybe something with that dried fruit you guys have? I'll compile a list, Kael'thas managed. Perfect. See you in a few weeks. Emma waved cheerfully and disappeared down the corridor, already making a mental grocery list and wondering if she'd remembered to grade yesterday's spelling tests. Behind her, 6 species worth of education officials scrambled to revolutionize millennia of tradition. And 3 predator cubs did their homework, humming the multiplication song their human teacher had taught them, waiting patiently for her return.